This is PIPSI 2023 and I'm Iman Rapetti.
Hi, I'm Radhika Sihin and I'm a public policy financial services expert.
And what we're going to be talking about this afternoon is something that is so fascinating, Radhika. We're talking about the metaverse. I don't think there's a person alive that doesn't know who or what the metaverse is. How does it relate to this payment space?
So, the thing about the metaverse is that you are basically creating the next iteration of the internet, and with it comes new business models that banks, non-banks, or fintechs need to start thinking about. Uh, the digital world is actually a replica of the real world. So, for example, commerce is going to be huge. McKinsey says that commerce will be about $50 trillion by 2035. So the ability to make revenue in that space is enormous right now. And financial service providers need to start thinking about how can they harness this potential.
Well, I would love for you to share what that potential is, because at the moment, when you think the metaverse, you still think of it as the surreal world. It's not really connected to reality. If I'm buying or spending in that space, it's not really real.
No, so the metaverse is quite immersive. It does feel real. And for that reason, actually, you will find that people want to replicate life as they know it. So you can go into the metaverse and you can buy clothes for your avatars, you can buy accessories, you can buy digital pets and keep them, you buy real estate. So that needs to be
Using real money.
so not necessarily at this point. And I'll caveat that by saying the thinking is normally that they will use some sort of digital means of exchange, whether it's cryptocurrencies or central bank digital currencies. But when you think about this world, a lot is still done with fiat. So if you want to bring these two worlds together, you're going to need to find a bridge between what happens in the real world and what happens in the digital world.
And fiat means the currency that we're using, the tactile currency.
Exactly.
Here.
So how do we get fiat to be converted, normally using on and off ramps, into the digital space so it can facilitate the transaction? Now that in itself is a business model for somebody to build.
It really is quite fascinating. So who's regulating this?
No, so there is no global regulation over the metaverse, and national authorities have not even gotten to the point. What has happened is that there's emergence of regulations on different aspects of the metaverse. In the financial services space in particular, regulators have started to look at virtual asset service providers or crypto asset service providers. So the guys that create the cryptocurrencies or create the digital assets and sell them on or invest in that space or trade in that space. Here in South Africa, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority has asked VASPs and CASPs to actually be authorized under the FAS Act, basically meaning that they consider it a financial instrument and for that reason need to be authorized by the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. The good thing about that means that consumer protection laws apply. So they have to do this under the auspices of good general conduct and fit and proper requirements. So in that case, I want to say it is really important to protect the consumer in this space, because very often the consumer does not know what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about just a normal sort of real world transaction, so many T's and C's and considerations. And now when you think about, a virtual space, a universe of sorts, I imagine that becomes exponential. But the one thing you said around there being regulatory consonance in and out of this world, into the metaverse, would probably be one of the reasons that formal banking institutions would have a sense of comfort in trading and in transacting on that platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think that the financial services regulators are trying to bring a regulatory framework around this remit. But the technology is moving so fast that, the regulators are kind of behind. They are following the innovation. And I think to some extent we don't fully understand all the risks because it's still evolving. And as the risks emerge, I think regulators are trying to almost put a barrier around it and say, okay, let's protect the institutions, let's protect the consumer, let's protect the space.
I mean, I'm thinking of NFTs, for example, on the blockchain, and how valuable they have become. And I'm wondering if you buy, are there items of such value in the metaverse that you could purchase, which might even accrue in value, that you can store and resell at a profit later on?
Yes, it's a complex conversation because for me, NFTs is a very wide spectrum of objects. So, for example, on the one hand, you have very simplified NFTs. So it's you and I taking a photo, digitizing it, and minting it into an NFT and selling it. Do we need to regulate that? Probably not. The idea is to give content creators the ability to make a living. But then on the other hand, you have something like Bored Apes, which has 10,000 unique pictures of an ape with very high values that can be traded. And that brings a whole new different context. Is that a market? Is it an investment instrument? Do we then need to bring the securities regulator into that space? Now, those conversations are happening, but it's not yet cemented in any particular place.
Radhika, thank you for cracking open this Pandora's box. And as you've indicated, just so many, I want to say rabbit holes that we can go down in terms of managing the space. But it has been a fascinating addition to this compendium of discussions we've been having. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.